They say a man's life can change in a moment, but they rarely tell you the truth, that the moment isn't some lightning strike of fate. It's a decision, a quiet, defiant whisper in the soul that says, no more. No more drifting, no more excuses, no more waiting for the world to hand you what you were born to build. I remember the day I stopped blaming the world. It wasn't dramatic, no applause, no spotlight, just me staring at a cracked mirror in a dimly lit room, realizing that the reflection wasn't broken, the mindset was. And in that silence I made a vow, not to change the world, not yet. First, I had to change myself. You see, success isn't something you chase, it's something you attract by the person you become. Napoleon Hill said it best, you become what you think about, but thinking alone isn't enough. You need habits, rituals, daily acts of defiance against mediocrity. And when those habits align with purpose, the universe doesn't just open doors, it builds new ones. The first habit that changed my life was clarity. Ruthless, unshakable clarity. Not the kind you scribble on a vision board and forget. I'm talking about the kind that burns in your chest like fire. The kind that wakes you up at 4 a.m. because your dream won't let you sleep. Clarity isn't just knowing what you want. It's knowing who you refuse to be. It's drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is where I rise. Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb by accident. He failed over 1,000 times, but he never lost clarity. He saw the light before the world did. That's the power of vision married to persistence. Clarity gives your struggle meaning. It turns pain into fuel. Without it, you're just wandering. With it, you're unstoppable. But clarity alone is a compass. You need belief to move. And belief, real belief, is forged in the fire of doubt. The second habit that changed my life was belief, not in luck, not in circumstance, but in myself. And let me tell you, that belief wasn't handed to me. It was built, brick by brick, scar by scar. Henry Ford was laughed out of boardrooms. They said his ideas were impossible. But he believed so deeply in his vision that he didn't just build cars, he built an industry. That's what belief does. It bends reality. It rewrites the rules. When you believe in yourself, the world has no choice but to follow. I started telling myself a new story, not the one society wrote for me, not the one fear whispered in my ear. I wrote my own, and every morning I repeated it like a prayer. I am capable, I am worthy, I am becoming. That belief became my armor. And when the world tried to break me, it shattered against the steel of conviction. But belief without discipline is just a dream dressed in delusion. So I built the third habit, discipline, not the kind that punishes, the kind that liberates, the kind that says, I will show up, even when I don't feel like it, because feelings are fickle. Discipline is divine. Discipline is the bridge between intention and impact. It's the quiet force that separates the dreamers from the doers. Walt Disney didn't build an empire on inspiration alone. He built it on relentless discipline, storyboard after storyboard, rejection after rejection, until the world finally saw what he saw. That's the kind of discipline I chose. Not glamorous, not loud, just consistent. I stopped negotiating with my excuses. I stopped waiting for motivation to arrive like some divine guest. I built rituals, morning rituals, night rituals, sacred hours carved out for my craft, my growth, my becoming. And every time I honored those rituals, I felt the shift, the internal gears grinding forward, the fog lifting. The man I was becoming stepping closer, but discipline without direction is just motion. So I cultivated the fourth habit. Purpose. Deep, soul-rooted purpose. Not the kind you find in a job title or a paycheck. The kind that makes your chest tighten when you think about it. The kind that makes failure feel like a detour, not a defeat. Abraham Lincoln didn't endure loss after loss because he loved politics. He endured because he was possessed by purpose, a vision of unity, a belief in something bigger than himself. That's what purpose does. It gives your pain a reason. It turns setbacks into stepping stones. It makes you dangerous to doubt. I asked myself the hard questions. Why am I here? What am I willing to suffer for? What legacy do I want to leave behind? And the answers weren't always pretty. They weren't always clear, but they were honest. And honesty is the birthplace of purpose. Once I found it, everything changed. My work had weight, my time had value, my voice had power. I wasn't just living, I was leading, not others, myself. And when you lead yourself with purpose, the world starts to listen. But even purpose can be poisoned by pride. So I built the fifth habit, gratitude. Not the passive kind, the active kind, the kind that humbles you, that reminds you how far you've come, even when you're not where you want to be. Gratitude is the antidote to entitlement. It's the lens that turns scarcity into abundance. Andrew Carnegie, one of the richest men in history, spent his final years giving away his fortune. Why? Because he understood that wealth without gratitude is hollow, that success without service is empty. Gratitude expands you. It makes room for more joy, more growth, more life. I started thanking the struggle, the sleepless nights, the failures, the critics, because they shaped me, they refined me, they revealed me. And when you can be grateful for the grind, you've already won. These 5 habits, clarity, belief, discipline, purpose, gratitude, they didn't just change my life. They rebuilt it, they rewired my mind, they redefined my identity. And now, every day, I live by them. Not perfectly, not effortlessly, but relentlessly. Relentless, that's the word. Not gifted, not lucky, not chosen. Relentless. Because life doesn't reward the talented. It rewards the tenacious. The ones who keep showing up when the applause fades. The ones who build when no one's watching. The ones who bleed for a vision only they can see. I learned that resilience isn't a trait. It's a decision. A daily decision to rise, to rebuild, to reframe every failure as feedback, to stand in the storm and whisper, I'm still here. That's the kind of resilience that rewrites destinies. Think of Lincoln, standing alone in a divided nation. Think of Edison, surrounded by broken filaments and laughter. Think of Oprah, rejected, ridiculed, and still rising. These weren't moments of triumph. They were moments of choice. And I chose the same. I chose to stop waiting for the world to validate me. I chose to validate myself, to honor my journey, to trust the process, because the process is sacred. It's where the magic lives, not in the outcome, not in the applause, in the grind, in the silence, in the sweat. And in that silence, I found something else. A 6th habit, unspoken but essential. Adaptability. The ability to bend without breaking, to evolve without losing your essence. The world changes, people change, circumstances shift. But the ones who thrive are the ones who pivot with purpose. Steve Jobs didn't cling to the past. He reinvented it. He saw the future before it arrived. That's adaptability. Not just reacting, but anticipating. Not just surviving, but shaping. I learned to let go of rigid plans and embrace fluid vision, to trade control for creativity, to trust the detour, because sometimes the detour is the destination. I stopped fearing change. I started dancing with it. I let it teach me, stretch me, sharpen me, and every time I adapted, I grew, not just in skill, but in spirit. Because growth isn't just vertical, it's multidimensional, it's emotional, spiritual, philosophical, and that's where the real transformation began. Not in the habits themselves, but in who I became through them. A man of vision, a man of conviction, a man of gratitude, not perfect, not finished, but forged. Forged in the fire of failure, tempered by discipline, guided by purpose, and elevated by belief. You see, these habits aren't just tools, they're truths, universal truths, timeless truths. The kind Napoleon Hill wrote about when he said, "Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve." But he didn't mean wishful thinking. He meant work, he meant alignment, he meant becoming. And that's what I did. I became, not overnight, not without scars, but with intention, with hunger, with heart. Heart. That's the part they forget to mention, the part that doesn't show up in spreadsheets or strategy, the part that bleeds quietly behind the scenes. You can have clarity, belief, discipline, purpose, gratitude, but without heart, it's hollow. Heart is what makes the grind sacred. It's what turns effort into art. And when your habits are driven by heart, you don't just chase success, you embody it. You become the kind of person success is drawn to, not because of what you have, but because of who you are. That's the shift. That's the awakening. I stopped chasing outcomes. I started chasing alignment. I asked myself, does this habit honor my future self? Does it serve the man I'm becoming? And if the answer was no, I let it go, ruthlessly. Because becoming isn't about addition, it's about subtraction. Removing everything that dilutes your power, your focus, your fire. And in that fire, I found something ancient, something eternal, a rhythm, a pulse. The same pulse that beat in the chest of Carnegie when he built libraries for strangers. The same pulse that drove Disney to sketch dreams on napkins. The same pulse that whispered to Hill as he wrote, "You are the master of your fate." That pulse lives in you, right now, waiting, watching, asking one question, will you rise? Because these habits, these 5 sacred rituals, they're not just mine, they're yours. They belong to anyone willing to claim them, anyone willing to suffer for greatness, to sacrifice comfort for clarity, to trade distraction for discipline, to choose purpose over popularity. And when you do, the world shifts, not immediately, not dramatically, but undeniably. You start to walk differently, speak differently, think differently. You stop reacting and start creating. You stop surviving and start leading. You stop existing and start living. Living with intention, with fire, with legacy. Legacy, that's the final echo, the final habit, if you will. Not something you leave behind, but something you live now. Every word, every choice, every moment, you're writing your story. And the pen is in your hand, so write boldly, speak truthfully, live relentlessly. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more soul, more vision, more people who've been broken and rebuilt. People who've walked through fire and emerged forged. People who've chosen clarity over chaos, belief over doubt, discipline over distraction, purpose over popularity, and gratitude over greed. Be that person. Start today. Not with a grand gesture, not with a perfect plan, but with one habit, one decision, one moment of defiance against the ordinary. Because that's how lives change, not in the spotlight, but in the silence. In the silence, that's where it begins, where the noise fades, where the world stops shouting and your soul starts whispering. That whisper, it's your truth, your compass, your calling. And if you listen closely, it doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for presence, for courage, for commitment. Because transformation isn't loud, it's not viral, it's not glamorous, it's quiet, it's sacred. It's the moment you choose to rise when no one's watching. The moment you choose to believe when everything says you shouldn't. The moment you choose to act, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. And when you string those moments together, day after day, habit after habit, you don't just change your life, you change your identity. You become the kind of person who doesn't flinch in the face of fear, who doesn't fold under pressure, who doesn't wait for permission to be great. You become the architect of your destiny. That's what these habits gave me, not just success, not just progress, but power. Quiet, unshakable power. The kind that doesn't need to be proven. The kind that's felt. The kind that walks into a room and shifts the energy. Not because it demands attention, but because it commands respect. And now I live by a different code. A code written not in ink, but in action, in repetition, in resilience. I wake up with clarity. I move with belief. I grind with discipline. I speak with purpose. I breathe with gratitude. And I adapt with grace. Because life will test you. It will bend you. It will break you. But if you've built the right habits, it will never defeat you. So if you're listening to this and something inside you is stirring, good. That's your soul waking up. That's your future self knocking. That's your greatness stretching its limbs after years of sleep. Answer it. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for the fear to vanish. Don't wait for the world to understand. Just begin. Begin with one habit, one choice, one act of rebellion against the life you no longer accept. Because the truth is, you were never meant to be average. You were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to settle. You were meant to rise, to lead, to build, to become. So rise, and let the world feel the weight of your becoming.